Hey guys, it's Memorial Day and I figured I would just come down here in my lounge pants and do an awesome video for you about this amazing amplifier, which is the Splawn Nitro 100 watt. Now, I went live with the Splawn Nitro probably about 2 years ago and I was just shocked at how aggressive and how thick it was. And it just sounded amazing, so I had to have one. So I called Scott Splawn and had him build me a custom one. And I really haven't had much time to play it because I got all these other amps and I got all this other stuff going on in my life. So, but I finally got it dialed in to where I think it just sounds phenomenal. I mean, this is so aggressive, so thick and chunky, and the chugs on this thing are just nasty, just so nasty. It sounds like I'm double tracking. You know, it's got this really nice attack on the top end, but it's so throaty and thick and just a little bit of sludge to it. You know, it just sounds really just evil. Now, I know Splawn amps aren't known for that. I mean, most of the time when people think about Splawn amps, they think of the quick rod for like the classic rock stuff. You know, if you want to get that really nice classic VH tone and like the Marshall stuff, you know, plexis and, you know, JMPs and stuff like that. I mean, that's kind of what people are familiar with. Now, the Nitro is kind of like the dark horse in the Splawn family. It's a lot more aggressive, a lot more gain, and I don't think it's talked about enough. And I'm telling you, like, if you're looking for something really unique and different, I can't recommend this amplifier enough, especially since I've really gotten to know this thing. And so what I'm going to do today is show you what I did to dial this amplifier in to make it sound as mean and nasty as it does. And I honestly don't think this amplifier could sound any better or any nastier than it does right now. I am really pushing the envelope with this amp, and it just sounds killer. So, you know, if you don't believe me, listen to the intro track that I opened with. I mean, the chugs, all the chugs in between all the riffs and stuff that I was playing, they stand out just big time, you know? And they really highlight themselves when you play on this amplifier. And it's undeniable how much attack and how much definition that you get on the chugs in this amplifier. And I know chugs, you know, some people are like, oh my God, stop talking about chugs. But really, it's a thing. When you're playing riffs and you're palm muting, there's a lot of chugs and stuff in between all the notes and chords that you're playing. And the more those stand out, the better. So you really want to get an amplifier that accentuates parts of your playing. And with me, I do a lot of chugs, I do a lot of riffs and chords and little single note passages and stuff like that. So I need an amp that articulates that stuff properly, and I really feel like the Splawn does that about as good as any amp possibly could. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and play a couple more riffs on this guitar. This is a JP Majesty Artisan series. This is a 6-string tuned down to C sharp standard, and I'll play a couple riffs on it. I do have the Mud Killer engaged, so I should probably put the picture up there. So when you see the picture up there of the Mud Killer, that means it's on. If you don't see it, that means it's off. So I'm going to keep it engaged for these riffs because I use a Mud Killer. And by the way, what you will need to achieve the tone that I'm getting today out of the Nitro is obviously a Splawn Nitro 100. And you'll also need a Mesa 212 cab with vintage 30s in it, or whatever other cab suits your taste, but that's what I'm using here today. And a good overdrive pedal. And I already know there's already somebody out there saying to himself, well, a good amplifier doesn't need an overdrive pedal. Shut up, Timmy. No one gives a crap what you think. Why don't you go play on the swings? Anyways, back to the video. By the way, I will dial in the amplifier and show you what it sounds like with and without the overdrive pedal, so you and little Timmy can enjoy the video too. Alright, so let's go ahead and play a couple riffs on the amplifier before we begin the dial in so you can hear what it sounds like outside of a mix. All right, so now all the knobs on the amplifier are set to noon, and I'm going to dial it in from there, and we're going to go ahead and turn off the overdrive pedal. And once we get it dialed in, I'll engage the pedal and do some fine tuning on the amplifier if necessary, and then we're going to get this thing to breathe a lot of freaking fire. So here we go. Okay, so pretty simple. Now, here's the thing. Like, I had to do a couple things that I don't normally do on amplifiers. I mean, this amp is a little on the dark side unless you dial it in properly. And now, if you like it dark, I mean, that's fine too. I get it. But, so I have the presence. Here, let me zoom in on it here. So what I did is I got the presence at 3 o'clock, which I know is pretty uncommon on most amplifiers. Unless you're playing the Stealth. I mean, the Stealth is also one of those amps you can crank the presence up to 3 o'clock on and get away with that, and it works really well. And the treble is a little higher than I like it on most amps, especially when I have the presence so high, but it works. Like, it adds that right amount of bite to the amplifier, and it sounds and feels great. Now, if you turn the treble up too high, what happens is it gets a little thin and too raspy, so you want to be careful with the treble. You want it around 2 o'clock or maybe a little bit more, but around 2 o'clock or, you know, right around there. It's a sweet spot, and the presence about right there at 3 o'clock. And I added some bass, and I got the resonance right here. And the reason why I did that is because I'm going to engage the overdrive pedal, and that does cut some of the low end out. So I attenuated for it ahead of time. And we'll have to fine-tune it if necessary after I engage the pedal, but that's pretty much how we have it. And then there's the gain right there. So about 3 o'clock on the gain, that covers solos and rhythms. So that's pretty much how I have it dialed in. And another very important factor on this amplifier is make sure you crank the knob on the back associated with effects loop. Turn the effects loop knob all the way up, and you're going to get more low end and more aggression on the amplifier, and that's where I have it right now. So just trust me on that. Crank it all the way up and the amp will become fuller and more aggressive, and you'll get that little more texture out of it, and it just sounds incredible. Alright, so now that we have the amplifier dialed in really well without the overdrive pedal, I'm going to switch guitars and play a couple riffs on it for you, and let's see how tight it is without the overdrive. Alright, with the Lundgren pickups in my Schecter Banshee Mach 7, it sounds really good. There's a lot of great texture and low end and fullness in the amplifier. It's a little on the dull side with these pickups without the overdrive pedal, but it does sound really good. And that's why I use an overdrive, because it adds that bite, you know? And I don't mean anything derogatory by saying it's a little on the dull side. It sounds really good. But for what I do and my taste and the kind of music that I play, I like that really nice bite on the top end. That's just enough to make it cut through a mix without being, you know, piercing to your ears. Let's go ahead and engage the overdrive now. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the Mud Killer and wake this amp up a little bit, and now let's play some riffs through it and do some fine tuning if necessary. Alright, so with this guitar, again, the pickups are a lot different than the pickups in this guy here. They're a little less aggressive. So when I was playing the JP Majesty through it, I felt like it was a little more aggressive. These are a little smoother. So depending on your pickups, you'll adjust the amp and your pedal accordingly. So with this guitar, I might add just a touch more top end in the amplifier, but with my other guitars here, because of the pickups in those, I would leave it just like it is. So let me go ahead and do that now. I'll adjust it for this guitar for people who, you know, play these guitars. I'll see what the settings are best for this one. Okay, so I brought the treble up just a hair, but I don't want to thin the amp out too much, because like I said earlier, if I bring the treble up too high on this amplifier, it starts getting really raspy and thin. So let me make an adjustment on my Mud Killer pedal instead. So right now I have the tone knob at top dead center. So a lot of times if you want a little more bite out of an amplifier, all you have to do is crank the tone all the way up, or anywhere between noon and all the way up, just find your sweet spot with it, and it'll add that really nice bite. So if you, again, you have some smoother pickups, just add a little more bite on the pedal and attenuate for that, and then you can fix that. So let's go ahead and do that now, and I'll tell you where I end up on the pedal. Alright, so I found the sweet spot. It's right at 4 o'clock on the tone knob of the Mud Killer pedal. And when I turned it up all the way, it was a little too stringy for me, but as soon as I brought it back to 3 o'clock, I was like, oh, that's not enough, and then I brought it just to 4 o'clock, and it was like, boom, there it is. It added that really nice texture that I like, and you got to think about this, like in a mix, you want all of your notes and the articulation associated with them to come out. So, but you don't want it too brash, because now you're just driving everybody nuts with your horrible brash tone. So you got to find that sweet spot, which I feel like I did. All right, so let's go ahead and do a quick mix with this guitar, and then I will switch guitars and do any necessary dialing in on the amplifier for that guitar and do some riffs and a mix with that one. right, that sounded really good. Guitar cut through the mix just like I wanted it to. The sound and feel was really good, so I guess that's a win for this guitar. So now let's switch to one of my other guitars and see how it sounds with that and do some riffs and a mix with that one. Alright, I got my JP Majesty Monarchy Series 7-string, and this is standard tuning. So let's go ahead and see how the amp sounds without the overdrive pedal, and then I'll go ahead and engage it and give you a comparison with that. Alright, let's go ahead and engage the overdrive. I think it's going to feel a little better for me to play. It sounds great without it. This is a pretty damn tight amplifier, just so you know. But I want that little extra response when I'm playing an amplifier, and the overdrive gives me that. So I'm just going to tighten it up a little bit with it and just give it a little kick in the ass, and that's really what I like. So let's go ahead and see how it sounds now that we've kicked it in the ass. Alright, so with this guitar and the pedal, I don't feel like I need the tone on the pedal cranked, at all. I'm going to set it back to noon. I feel like it was a little too cold. It had a little too much bite on it. And I remember I bumped the treble a hair, so I'm going to bring that back a little bit. And now let's see what it sounds like. Much better. It sounds brutal as hell, but it doesn't have that hint of coldness in the top end. It was a little too stringy, when I had the tone on the pedal at 4 o'clock. So I brought that back and nudged the treble back down on the amplifier. Now I got this really nice smoothness, but it also has an equal amount of aggression and texture on the top end. So I think this is a really well-balanced configuration between the pedal, the guitar, and the amplifier. So now let's go ahead and do a mix with this guitar and see how it sounds. God. That just sounds killer, man. I'm telling you, man, this amp is the dark horse, in my opinion, of the Splawn family of amplifiers. Like I said earlier, you know, the quick rods are great. I just did a video on that and compared it to the Marshall, and it kicked the Marshall's ass. And the quick rods are really good. But for metal guys like me, and probably a lot of you that are watching, if you're going to get a Splawn, this is the one to get. It really is a fantastic amp. It's got a lot of great aggression and texture. You just got to learn how to dial it in properly. Now, Scott will do some mods on the amplifier for you. Now, I do have the B Plus mod, so I put that on there, and it's worth it because it adds just that little bit of voltage sag, and it just makes the amp feel a little better. There's a teeny bit more give in it, and it just sounds phenomenal, and it adds to the feel a little bit. So it changes the voltage just a little bit. I don't know, just there's something magic about that. So if you're going to get one from Scott, have him put the B Plus mod on there. It's worth it. It really does make a difference. All right, so now let's do some Van Halen riffs on it, right? I mean, why wouldn't we want to do something like that? Let's see how this amplifier handles lower tuning. So this guitar is a 7th string, but I'm going to play it like it's a 6th string. So I'm not going to use the low B, which is actually tuned to an A. So I dropped the E down to a D, but it's actually a C sharp now because everything's a half step down. So this is basically the same tuning Eddie used for Unchained. So let's go ahead and play that now and see what it sounds like with that kind of tuning and those kind of riffs. So before we end the video, I want to do one more thing for you with this amplifier. I want to show you what the lead tone sounds like. I'm just going to do a quick little passage in one of my songs so that you can hear what the lead sound is like in this amplifier. Alright, well there you have it, the Splawn Nitro, the dark horse of all of the Splawn amps, and I'm just telling you, go get one of these freaking amps. They are amazing. I don't think this amplifier gets enough praise. Everybody talks about the quick rod. Go get a Splawn Nitro. These amps are sick. They're so aggressive and so brutal, and they sound and feel amazing. And again, if you order it from Scott, you can get all kinds of customizable features. Tolex, different looks, all kinds of stuff. Now, on a side note, Motor City Guitar does have one in stock, and it does have the KT88s in it. So that was the one that made me fall in love with Splawn amps. So if you want to get that, they do have it there, and it's a really good amplifier. That's the one I demoed on the channel about a year and a half or so ago. And the only reason why I didn't buy that one was because I liked the look of it, but I wanted to get my own customized amp. You know, I mean, if I'm going to do something like that once, I might as well go full tilt and get one from Scott directly and have all the stuff I like on it. So It's got my favorite colors and favorite look and everything. And like I said, it's got the KTs. And get one with the KT88s in it. It just gives you this really big, fat bottom end and tons of great sound and feel. It just sounds like a wall coming at you. So I hope you enjoyed this dial-in video, and if you own one of these amplifiers, try the settings, and I want to see what you think of those settings in the comments below. And remember to use a good overdrive pedal. Use whatever you like for your taste. I use the Mud Killer, and I think it's a very versatile pedal, and it sounds great with all of my amps, and I feel like it paired very well with this amplifier. Well, thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it, and stay tuned to the channel, and make sure you subscribe and click the bell so that you can be notified every time I come out with new episodes or go live. I got a lot of great stuff coming up, and I will see you on the next one.